very good. Thank you so much for having me. It's
My
wonderful to
pleasure.
be here. And yeah, Pam Didner here. And I just want everybody to know I'm a B2B marketing person through and through. Can you tell? Just like from top to bottom. And like Crane indicated, B2B can be complex. And in most of the time, I kind of, my forte or focus is on the sales and marketing alignment, and especially through sales enablement, content marketing, account-based marketing. And things get very complicated when you start talking about marketing technology as well, how to build a marketing technology to facilitate that. And in general, I'm a doer. I work very closely with my clients side by side. We are in the trenches together to get things done. And one thing I'm not very good at is I don't bullshit. I
Love
tell
that.
you
Please
the
don't.
reality in terms of what it looks like. And yeah, there are some stuff I will share with you in terms of like the truth, the harsh reality. But the bottom line is, as long as you acknowledge, embrace that, you understand that this is can be difficult or can be challenging, then you create a plan to solve it. So I try to just like Corinne indicated, like complex situation, how do we break it down into little pieces so we can address little things, one things at a time. So yeah, that's me.
I love that.
Okay, so that's a great idea. B2B marketing is obviously business to business. That means, the company build a product to sell to another business. And that's in general B2B marketing. And like B2C is the company build a product, sell directly to end user or the consumer, right? So on the B2B side, that we sell, the company build a product, sell to another enterprise, and for obviously for people within that company to use, and that tend to be B2B. And a lot of people will say, you know what, at the end of the day, it's humans that are using the products. In a way, it's kind of like B2B to C. It is correct to some extent. However, you have to understand, when you sell a product to a company, granted, it's a group of people that buying the products, but it's the company, right? The company that placed the PO for the product that you are selling. And in general, when a product is sold to a company, excuse me, there are a couple things you have to take into account. Number one, they tend to have more decision makers.
Mm.
Number two, decision-making length tend to be a little bit longer. Number three, the dollar tend to be bigger. And number four, the product tend to be a little bit more complicated than you sell just to B2C, because many people will use it and you have to satisfy their needs. Does that make sense?
That's making.
That's what B2B is. Hey, that's boring. I understand it's what we call component.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like a suppliers that sell components, say to aircraft companies, right?
that's exactly right. And he told me, no, content marketing for me, forget about it. Who will ever wants to learn about what I sell, what I have to sell? So my question is, how, generally speaking, how would we start in like saying not fancy B2B industry?
Yeah.
And specifically, do you have tips to be creative, ideas of the budget to start with, few things like that?
Yeah. So let me talk about a couple of things. I want to break that down into three different perspectives. Okay. Number one is content or marketing or content essential for B2B? That's the first question I want to answer. The answer is solid yes. Even though it's a boring topic or it's a boring component, you have to understand, when you try to sell B2B products, you are not selling to masses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the first
Yeah.
thing you have to understand. Second thing is, no matter what you are selling, there are always a group of people that is doing the job that require your product, and they would get excited. So when you actually improve your product, either use aluminum material instead of plastic material, and you use aluminum materials, it's much lighter, and that's just say it will make the wings actually lighter and you fly faster. Let's just assume that. Okay. I'm telling you, the people who are doing the design and who are doing assembly, who needs to buy your part, they geek out. So you have to understand, when you create content, you are not creating content to like, oh my God, nobody is going to read it. You have to think about your tribe. There will be the design engineers. There will be a manufacturer. There are people that actually have to put your part into the overall plan. They geek out. That's the group that you have to please. Maybe that group is only 100 people in this whole world.
But that's amazing.
But that's the people. You know them. Then you create content to please them.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So that, I totally understand where your customer coming from. Your customer say, why do I need to do it? It's only 100 people. Who cares? No. But if that 100 people is 80% of your revenue, you know what? You should care. So that's number one. Second thing is, how do you create content that for the B2B side? That is a budget discussion. Okay? If you have a big budget, you can hire somebody to write a very nice script, and you hire somebody to actually do a, cinematography type of production. You know what? You're gonna make your product interesting because you created storytelling, filmmaking, right?
Amazing.
So to me, you can do storytelling at a certain standard when you have a sizable budget. But if you don't worry about it. Just like Korean and I are doing. We have a chat. We talk about product. We do a little show and tell. If you are sincere, it's going to come through. Why don't we start with that if we know budget?
That's amazing.
In general, any kind of B2B products is complex. It does require explanation. If you create something to explain it, it doesn't matter if it's a video, the audio, or even the blog. That's a content all by itself. Does that make sense? Show and tell is a content. Content is absolutely necessary even for boring product.
And I would even say, after listening to you, even more for boring product, because you have more.
No kidding! Yeah! You hit the core. That's good. If you're an entrepreneur, you just start and you're a startup and you're a product. The first things before you do any marketing is your product needs to be good. Okay?
Seems obvious.
Everybody, it seems obvious, but people are so anxious to market, they overlook that. Your product, first of all, needs to be good. Okay? Second thing is, there's a demand for it. Right? You talk to different people and you kind of understand there's a demand for it. You create that product. Do you know how many times I talk to startup? They create a product, they not necessarily understand if there's a demand for it. Okay? People will argue with me, but the product I created is innovative. I'm creating a new category. I get that. Okay? If you want to create a new category, your product needs to be so simple that's very easy for people to get it. Right? Why did iPhone take off? It's obviously a whole lot simpler than BlackBerry in a lot of ways, right? And so I totally agree. Like you were like, Pam, there's no demand for this in the market. I create this product. I'm creating new category. I'm creating new demand. Okay, then your product needs to be pretty simple to start with that people understand. Okay, and that means your messaging or the way that you position this product, you need to be able to say it in less than 5 minutes. People say, oh yeah, got it. Oh yeah, that's so simple. I need that. That's so easy to transfer my money. Right? It's very simple, like Cash App, for example. So first things is product. You cannot put lipsticks on a pig. The product needs to be solid. That's number one. Number two is, how do you position that product? What are you going to say? That's number two. It's not creating content. Oh my God, I have this product. Let me create blog post. Nope. What is the positioning? What do you want to say about this product? How is that different? Right? So the positioning is the second thing, tied with the messaging framework. Once you have that, and that needs to get buy-in internally, right? It's not like, okay, I create this messaging framework, this is what I'm going to say. CEO might have a slightly different perspective of how to interpret that product, how to position that product. Product engineers might have a different perspective in terms of what they need to say about this product. So that needs to get buy-in internally. Everybody agree how we're going to position that product. Okay, that's the second thing. Then you start thinking about what kind of content can I create. But when you create the content, you're not create content for the masses. You create the content for the salespeople first. They are going to be out there and selling stuff for you, selling your product. Create that your initial content for your salespeople to sell. That's number 1, 2, and 3. Yes and no. So that's talk about that again from 2 different perspectives. Okay. Number 1, depending on the company. Some company, they design the product, not involve marketing, and the product designed, then they communicate with the marketing come up with messaging and positioning, and they sell the product. Then there's another approach, which is during the product design, they involve marketing and then provide customer feedback or provide customers the marketing's point of view and design that into say marketing. And then a lot of positioning and a lot of unique messaging, it was discussed while the product has been developed. Does that make sense? So you can see there's 2 different approaches in terms of how marketing is engaged as a product development. And honestly, Corinne, there's no right or wrong approach in terms of what needs to be done. But I would say in general, most of the enterprises, they tend to focus on product development on their own. They might also doing the focus group and the product designed on their own, not necessarily engage with marketing. Many of the companies, they engage in marketing on the tail end when the product is almost finished. Okay. So that's one. Second thing is you brought a very good point, Corinne, and in terms of like we if you look at CRM category, the CRM category, they have many CRM players, and the market itself is incredibly saturated, right? I mean, Salesforce obviously taking the lead on the enterprise side, but you also have a CRM that's tailored specifically for different verticals and different industries. And it's, even though you feel like, oh, there are so many CRM, it's very hard to find your niche or you find your, what I call a white space. You know, in, let's assume CRM landscape is this big, and where do you fit against everybody else? Does that make sense? My take on this is, let's take a page from the consumer product, a very commoditized product, hammer. You know, you hammer the nail. You use a hammer just, you know, to hammer the nail, right? What is so special about that? But when you type hammer in Home Depot or even in any, like even in the Amazon site, there's probably 1,000 hammers you can choose from. But when you pay attention, each hammer have their unique positioning. There's one, it's just pink hammer for the girls. Seriously, it's pink. And the other one is like, there's another one. It's like, okay, the handle is so smaller, it's actually good for a person that has small hands. And then the other one basically said the hammer is so big, it can hand basically, you know, like a nail that's as big as 20 pounds. So even with a hammer, like you read the description, they find a way to differentiate themselves. That's what you need to do for your product. Even though your segment is incredibly saturated, there is a way to differentiate you. Like for example, CRM, there's one company, they basically have a CRM, they designed their CRM embedded into a Google Mail. So their positioning is CRM embedded into your Gmail. That's a great positioning. The other one is like CRM actually only for dentists. Right? So they designed it specifically for dentists that they can track their customers and remind, you know, send the dentist an email and say, oh, it's a birthday of your customer. It's time to send, you know, birthday card, for example. Right? So that you can definitely define and find unique differentiator of your product, regardless how commoditized your product is. To me, the success look like it's one thing. Okay. ultimately, if your salespeople like said, hey, you know what? Come to my sales meeting. That shows you provide value.
Okay.
Or the salespeople said, oh, you have an annual meeting coming up? I want to be part of that. That means a lot of stuff you have done provides so much value. Sales want to be part of it. That to me is a massive success metrics to like salespeople invite you. So you actually have the seat at the table. That's the ultimate validation in terms of you are doing a great job on sales and marketing alignment. It's not about, yes, at the end of the day, you can basically say, oh, you know what? We are able to track marketing's revenue contribution to sales. You know, we contributed X percentage to a sales. That is great, right? You have data to support that. But from my perspective, it's something personal that sales come to marketing and say, come join us. That is ultimate success. So, Corinne, you are totally right. There are many ways that sales and marketing can collaborate. Let me just give everybody a quick example. So you can collaborate by, data integration. You can collaborate basically on co-marketing effort. For example, you actually have a biggest customers and you want to talk about how you guys can co-present like a solution to another bigger account. You want to work together to actually, join hip and present it together as a joint solution for another big fish. So that usually requires some marketing help. And another one is account-based marketing. And there's probably 5 to 10 accounts that say salespeople really want to bring it in and they want to put them in their pockets. Well, what can marketing help? And or you help them just as simple as like, okay, they need certain kind of deck. And can you pull some information for them, but not do it all the time? Or they need certain type of content and you making a suggestion in terms of what content they can use. Or you can, as simple as if they need email templates, can you write a template for them that they can use over and over and over again? There are many ways to actually help sales, and it can be small, it can be very big, depending on what you are doing. It's just like, that question is very similar when people say, is email dead? And I even have a question like, is website dead? And my take on this is all of them are actually alive and well. And in terms of the marketing funnel, the thing is, before we talk about marketing funnel, set that aside. Is that dead or not? It doesn't matter. It's like, how does your customer come to you? Let's talk about that first, right? And they obviously started with some sort of search and they have a certain kind of needs. And after they do some search and they do a lot of research on their own, and if they do a lot of research on their own, they also talk to their peers. And if they talk to peers, they might still talk to salespeople. So when that's set aside a marketing funnel, and let's assume the marketing funnel is completely dead. But then that's not worry about that at all. Then let's worry about how your customer find you, how your customer, needs to be served. Well, let's talk about that then. Then use that as your marketing funnel.
Oh, that's a really great point. The reason why I'm asking and intentively a little bit like shocking, it was because it seems that now for some marketers, this marketing funnel is such a headache and so complex setup that we almost forget what we're doing it. And at some point we say, okay, I need to move forward. I need to put this aside and just like deliver something. I don't know. Yeah. And what makes things even more complex for content marketers specifically is that we have so many options in terms of content type today. We have so many topics we could address.
Totally agree.
Yeah, to structure that and to make it fit into the marketing funnel can honestly be really overwhelming.
Very, very overwhelming and stressful. Yeah. So, Corinne, you brought a very good point. I mean, there are a million ways to actually to reach out to your customers. Okay, seriously. Okay, it's kind of like there's a million ways to break up with your boyfriend. Sorry, I'm kidding. Anyway, let's come back.
You are having so much fun.
I just thought about it and I was like, oh, why don't I just say that? That was kind of dumb. All right, we are B2B marketers. We need to be serious. Anyway, yeah, the thing is for all the B2B marketers, we got overwhelmed very quickly because we feel like, oh my God, there's so many ways they can come to us. Okay, there's so many ways they can do a keyword search. Oh my God, there's so many ways they can go to events and find us. Okay, my take on this is if that happens to you, you are overwhelmed, you know, what you need to do is take a break. That's like, hold down. We need a break. Okay. We need a break to grab a glass of wine. No, I'm kidding. But really, if you are overwhelmed like that, you need to take a break. Then you come back and then you kind of like think through, like you have to rethink the problem. Kind of like me, I'm closing my eyes. I was like, okay, this is way too complicated. It's overwhelming. Okay. It's too much work. Let's think about it first. Okay. Let's think about it in a very simple way. Number way is, okay, so the customers tend to find us on the website, on the internet. Okay, so we definitely need to do keyword search. Okay, that's one thing we cannot get rid of. Okay, when they come to our website, depending on what they do, okay, we need to have some sort of content. But okay, that can we sort it? Can we just identify one or two problems we want to solve? Let's just identify one or two things we want to solve and just focus on that. All right, if they have this challenge, what kind of journey do they usually go through? You define it, not your customer define it. I want to make that very clear. Okay. You define how you want this flow to be.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You said you're going to say, all right, this is how I'm going to define their flow. They're going to do some search. Okay. That means I need to have some keywords. Okay. When they come to this website to solve this problem, these are the couple contents I want to make sure they see. Okay. Then on the back end, you will know if they see it or not. If they see it, when they download this content, I will make sure that I have their IP address because they come to so I use the IP sniffer. So I will see their IP address. I will see what kind of company they are. I possibly can do a little research on that. When I have the IP address and I want to know, I want to have a tool set up that to be able to find out potentially what this person is. Once I have this person, I want to make sure I send out the email or I want to do a LinkedIn connection. Mm-hmm. So it's not about, oh my God, there are so many ways they can come to us. It's about, let me focus on just one. If they come to us, this is how I want to dictate they follow it through. Or I want to dictate I do to reach out to them. Does that make sense? So you narrow it down to one or two things. And I know it's hard to do that, but that's sometimes when you are so overwhelmed, that's what you need to do.
Okay. In a way, you take the lead. You're not letting him telling you where he's going to go. You just tell him where to go.
Exactly. You tell them where they need to go. You structure it. You structure your yellow brick road.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for this one, because it's really I know for a fact that on a daily life, there is the theory, and on a daily life, it's not always that easy to set this marketing funnel.
It is not. And if you work in the enterprise, you need buy-in. If you just want to focus on one or two in terms of building that workflow, sometimes you need buy-in from internal team and make sure they understand.
Sure.
And to get support, because they're going to pull you in 5 different directions. I need email marketing done today. And the next thing, social media. I need to do social media.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, all the time. Sometimes I call that job security. So I like the way that you talk about the difference between, or the differences between objectives and a goal. And that's one thing I want to explain. The second thing I want to explain is primary goal and secondary goal. All right. And let's talk about the first one, is the differences between objectives and goal. Objective is like, for example, you want to, let's assume, position your company as a thought leader in the manufacturing field. Okay, that's the objective you want to accomplish.
Okay, good.
The goal is something that ultimately what you're going to set up to measure your success. Like if I want to position myself as a thought leader, that's my objective. Maybe my goal is publish my name being mentioned by Wall Street Journal. Okay, so that's the
Okay.
goal, right? But that's take that goal and then you break it down, right? Or I publish an article on Harvard Business Review. I don't know. I'm just saying out loud. That's your
Okay.
goal,
Okay.
right? But to get there, there's many steps that you need to take to get there,
Sure.
right? So, and then you mentioned there's a weekly goal, there's a monthly goal, there's a daily goal. Okay. Before I get down to be like name to be mentioned on the Wall Street Journal, maybe I have to make sure I am on the local business journal first. And then maybe I should be on the local business TV first. And maybe I needs to be published the white paper, and the white paper being a backlink to multiple media outlet first. And then after that, maybe I will talk to the MSNBC's affiliates, that cover a multiple different states, and then eventually you reach, a certain thing. So then when you measure the goal, and the weekly goal or the monthly goals are something just to track in terms of, are you making progress? Does that make sense? So you always have to understand that when you have a monthly goal, it's that goal that ultimately will reach the primary goal. Then all the weekly, monthly goal, you should see it as a secondary goal. Okay, not necessarily the primary.
That's great. That's
That's
super
one
well
thing.
structured.
So then all of a sudden, you know which one is important. Like for example, my client just basically, we launch a website for a client, and the client say, "Oh my God, I need to add additional goals about web traffic." I was like, "Do you really need to do that? Do you need to add that as your primary goal? Your primary goal is a podcast download." Okay, then when you drive traffic to the website, ultimately you can drive 10,000 people to a website, but they only have one podcast download, then we fail miserably. But if you drive literally 100 people to the website and that has 50 downloads, then that's a success. So then we can measure the website traffic, definitely, but that should not be additional goal you added in addition to your podcast download. Does that make sense? Once I explained it, my client basically say, "You're right. We only have one goal. That's a podcast download." Everything we do is drive toward that. I can still measure the web traffic on monthly basis, on weekly basis, on quarterly basis. But the bottom line is I measure that as my secondary goal. I know that, but I'm not confusing that with my primary goal. And is the secondary goal supporting the primary goal? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, what can you do to improve it? Then all of a sudden you kind of know the differences and what you need to push and change. Is that helpful?
Super helpful.
Thank you.
Great. Like teacher. Primary, secondary, no third, fourth, five.
No. In general, I have this thought. I know a lot of social media managers is going to kill me. I always feel social media metrics are vanity metrics. By the way, that doesn't mean when I say that doesn't mean it's not important. Okay.
No, I get your point.
Comments, shares, likes, they are important. That's because you create free impressions for your brand. All right. So they are important. But ultimately, all this somehow need to drive some sort of conversion. Right. So if you build a lot of that, there's a lot of likes, a lot of share, but ultimately there's no conversion, or you cannot track you have to track the conversion. If you cannot track it, don't bother. But if you need to somehow track like some of those impression, like some people actually go down to kind of like a further down to your purchase funnel. Like somebody is actually due to your post and then comment on something and say, "You know what, this is very interesting. Can I talk to your salesperson?" Well, that's a conversion all by itself. "Oh, this is very interesting. I have this similar problem." Right. And then you can basically say, "Oh yeah, talk to my customer support." Or, "Hey, you know what, can I actually have one of my salespeople call you and talk about this?" Right. So the thing is, having the likes, having the share is all good. But if you look at the comments, can that comments convert to something that our salespeople can engage? That's a good question. And I don't have
There is
I
no
don't have
straight
an
answer.
yeah, I don't have an easy answer for this, honestly. And I don't like to be a black hat and try to game up on Google. Okay, so there's one thing, I'm not the type of person want to like, okay, let's go to a dark side and let's do something game up on the Google. Don't do that. Okay.
No, we don't talk about this here.
Yeah, I know, but there are people who will do that, and there are people offer to do that.
I know.
So that's the first things. But that okay, so can we just sit back for a second? Let's sit back for a second. Why Google make changes? Okay. A lot of time Google make changes because they are tired of people trying to gain up. And they are tired of people in terms of just want to they know the rule and they want to either go around the rule or break the rule. And but a lot of time I always think, what is Google's intention? Google's intention is they want to make sure that when a user or the customer like you and me want to find something, we find what we actually need.
So
Seriously,
again,
that's what their intention. Their intention is, if Pam wants to find something, okay, doesn't matter what her intent is. That's make sure that we serve up the content just exactly the way that she sees, or to answer exactly the questions that she wants to, address the questions that she wants to address. So a lot of time Google, granted, they might have a profit, they want to make a lot of money. I understand that. But that's in general, the attention is they want to serve up the content that is actually will serve and meet the people who search for the content. Okay. So then the fundamental question is, are you creating content to actually serve your customers? That should be the fundamental question you should ask. It's not about, yeah, I know the Google changing this, the traffic is going down, blah, blah, blah. Chances are moving forward, they are suppressing the organic traffic. We have to do pay. I get that. Okay. All the social media platforms need to survive. So they modify their algorithm, suppress the organic, and they want people to buy the pay ads. I get that. They have to survive. That I got. But set that aside. Let's think about their attention first, and also think about, what are we doing to serve our customers? If
that's
we're doing a good job serving our customers and provide the content that's essential, relevant, and useful,
that's
then you couple that with SEO optimization, it should be okay, right? So the bottom line is, everything you do should be a long play. It's not like, oh my God, I want to game up, and then you focus on next 6 months and your dashboard looks good. But it doesn't matter. It's what is your long play. Like, for example, I just a personal story to share with everybody. I only been on my own for 7 years. I left the corporate world and then just decided to be an independent consultant or a B2B doer since 2014. Okay, so 7 or 8 years. But I changed my website 5 times, okay? And I pay attention to the keywords I don't want to gain up. I pay attention to keyword I want to showcase my knowledge. And then I create content. And that doesn't mean like I create content every single week. No, I don't. And sometimes I go on for 6 months not creating any content. Oh well. Or sometimes I have no budget. Like, no budget. Fine, whatever. So, but I made it a long play. If you come to my website, pamdidner.com, click on resources, you will see the podcast. You can see the blogs I created. And everything I created is, I'm thinking from the perspective, how I can help you. Okay, a lot of time, my domain authority is not that high. If from Google standard, I fail miserably. But people can still find me. People still search me, and some of my keywords does come up. But that's 7 years of hard work. Okay, the first thing I would do is I go talk to my salespeople. And I said, hey, look, I have this $50,000. Let's make the best use of it. Okay, we have our website, we have everything. So I talked to my salespeople first. I said, what are the accounts that we're going after? What are the biggest accounts that have the highest probability of winning? The bottom line is I talk to my salespeople, I focus on them, help them to win deals. And
Mhm.
it's about placing bets, right? That $50,000 that I will tell them, we're gonna create content for you. We're gonna create content specifically. I would do ABM.
That's yeah. Okay.
It's basically I'm gonna help you win. And that if we need to create content, what is the content? Let's look at the account's need. Let's look at your game plan,
Mm.
right? And I will tailor my game plan to fit yours. That's win together. That's what I would do.